Good morning, Speaker. My question is for the Premier. Ontario's healthcare system is on the brink of collapse because of Bill 124. While jurisdictions around the world try to attract our healthcare workers, this government chose to freeze their pay and dock their wages and fight them in court. And then they lost again. Now it's time to pay up, at least $6 billion so far. The Financial Accountability is saying the government could owe workers more than $13 billion, Speaker. So to the Premier, how much money is this government currently withholding from working people?
To respond, the Minister of Finance.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and thank you. Mr. Speaker, you know, of course, through all this, we value very much the hard-working healthcare workers, teachers, construction workers, skilled trades, through COVID and beyond, as they help us rebuild Ontario. Mr. Speaker, obviously, when in 2022 the judge ruled Bill 124 to be unconstitutional, we then negotiated and through arbitration and other means have been paying out fair and reasonable wages to all those workers that we value. Mr. Speaker, that money has been going out for the last almost 2 years, and in fact, we have expended virtually all that money, over 90% of the agreement. So, Mr. Speaker, what is really important to know, as we rebuild this province, as we build the infrastructure, as we build the hospitals, when we rebuild the schools, as we build the highways and the public transit, everyone in Ontario will participate to help rebuild Ontario.
Supplementary question.
Speaker, here's the thing. The impact of Bill 124 was felt in communities right across this province, and now even without Bill 124 hanging over us, hiring and retention has become nearly impossible. Without dedicated funding to incentivize workers to stay in hospitals and long-term care homes, in home care and primary care, our public health care system will continue to suffer. So back to the Premier. Will this government finally pay workers what they're owed in the upcoming budget?
Minister of Finance.
Mr. Speaker, you know, as I am a student of history, one thing I remember is from 2003 to 2018, the Liberal Party, supported for 3 years by the NDP in 2011-2014, didn't build anything, Mr. Speaker. We inherited an infrastructure deficit. They closed 600 schools. They didn't build roads. They didn't build subways. They didn't build hospitals. They didn't build long-term care. In my own writing, from 2011 to 2018, you know how many net new beds were built in long-term care? Squadoosh, Mr. Speaker. Zero. Mr. Speaker, this government has a plan to rebuild this economy, has a plan to build the infrastructure, has a plan to support the workers who are going to build that and service those buildings. Response. Mr. Speaker, this government has a plan, and we're going to not stop until the job gets done.
The final supplementary.
Speaker, thank you. This Premier and his government have never had any respect for working people, and the working people of this province know it. They spent years fighting nurses and public sector workers in court to hold down their wages, and now this Premier has gone as far as calling the president of the union that represents those public sector workers a liar. The same person who represents healthcare workers and bus drivers, the people who care for our kids, who represent healthcare workers, who drive our transit system, the people who staff our long-term care facilities. And this Premier called them a liar, and that, Speaker, is disgraceful. So, Speaker, back to the Premier. Why does this Premier have such contempt for the hardworking people of Ontario?
Members will please take their seats. Minister of Finance.
Just the opposite, Mr. Speaker. This government is working with all the workers across Ontario, Mr. Speaker. You know, we had 8 trade unions support us in the last election. That number is growing, Mr. Speaker. You know, Mr. Speaker, last week I was out with the Premier and this Minister of Transportation touring in Windsor. in Windsor, the great work and job that they're doing at the Stellantis battery manufacturing plant. This is creating good working jobs, and you know who's doing those jobs? The hard-working people of Windsor. And you know, when we crisscross this province, and often when I'm with the Premier and with my colleagues, you know what? They line up from here to there to meet the Premier and thank him for his leadership to not only supporting all workers, but to support the building of this economy, Mr. Speaker. We inherited a weak economy. We're rebuilding that economy. Great jobs, bigger paychecks, and including all workers in Ontario.
Thank you. The next question. Once again, the Leader of the Opposition.
Speaker, this Premier and his government, they drive right past the striking workers in Windsor, and they don't stop for a second. That's the truth.